I think.
Oh, oh.
No.
I got it. Sorry about that. That's the first time on
That's okay. No problem.
Instagram. I feel like a prehistoric person now.
Yeah, no worries. So I'm gonna warn you. I did this. I had to do this with Jake Spinney, one of the veterans. So at the end of the video, when you click on the X,
yeah,
or you save the video so we can share it afterwards.
Okay, I'll do that. So we're not live with anyone but you and I at the moment. Is that right?
Yeah, it's just me and you and all of your followers and my followers. Not all of them.
Oh, okay. I don't have any followers. I haven't done anything with Instagram before.
You're predominantly on Facebook, correct, Scott?
Correct. Yeah, and even that's relatively new as well.
So and you so where are you? Because they took you off Facebook, right? You're censored right now.
Well, what's funny there is they've blocked my access to my group, which is the Global Freedom Movement, USA, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. Okay. So they've blocked me from being able to comment on anything there or post anything on there. But everything else I can post and comment anywhere else in Facebook.
The girls are going to go crazy over the Australian accent here. You already got a comment.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I don't actually speak with an accent. I think you guys listen with an accent.
Well, yeah, you think we have an accent, right?
Yeah, you do. But I like it. So I lived in Boston for 18 years, so I'm pretty used to your accent. So.
Yeah, awesome. So you're using the censorship quite heavily over in Australia right now, correct?
Yeah. You know what's terrible is because the mainstream media is so complicit to it, it's just so, it's like a branch of the Nazi Party. Yeah. They are doing stuff that's just obscene. I mean, we had a camp here that people just came together. It was on public land, so people put tents on it and they park their vehicles there, and there's videos of that on my Facebook. But the police turn up, they run everybody out of there, telling them that it's illegal to park here and it's illegal to camp here. But they didn't say anything about them being there because it's public land. So then they came in pretty aggressively with LRADs and all sorts of things, and then they moved them out of there. And we've got an independent journalist here who's pretty bit of a folk hero in Australia, so to speak, Rukshan, and so I drove him to the new camp, and the police had said to him, and I actually spoke to the police officer that was the negotiator, and he said, "Oh, we've given you all somewhere else to camp where you're allowed to camp. You just have to move to there." So everybody listened to him, moved to there, and of course it was what we call the showgrounds here. They run events there.
I saw that.
It exploded. It was phenomenal. There had to be, I mean, it took, to get half a kilometre, it'd take 2.5 hours trying to get in there.
Wow.
It was jammed. And
how many vehicles?
Oh, I mean, it's hard to know, but I mean, there would have had to have been 20,000 people. And they just kept coming. There was people trying to get into our city and they couldn't even get in. The authorities put out some announcement that 2.5 million cars had entered Canberra, which is the Australian Capital Territory, which I think the population here is around 300,000. So, excuse me. So it gives you an idea that.
Australia, yay! That's great.
Yeah. So then we had a rally, which you'll see vision of on. You would have probably haven't seen it. You wouldn't have seen it anywhere, but on the not the mainstream stuff, just us independent type people.
Yeah.
So there was, the mainstream media wouldn't even acknowledge that we were there. That just talked trash about us. And the atmosphere was just electric. Like you guys had it there. I don't have to explain the atmosphere there.
Yeah.
Just phenomenal.
We it was funny because when I sent you my speech that I did in front of the Australian Congress.
Loved it. Yeah.
Thank you. And you know, I tried to, you know, like it was kind of like a warning, and that was before we had experienced police brutality, because I, you know, I've been following. Well, you know my story. You know my daughters are there. We spoke a little bit.
Yes. Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you know, so obviously I've been through it. I've been in quarantine camps there twice.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know.
Yeah. The stories that people have is just. I mean, I was meeting Victoria was. Well, I think you said it on your video. The most lockdown city in the world.
Yeah.
There was people coming up from there, and they were hardcore. They'd done this before. I mean, there's ladies like yourself, you know, just respectable, lovely ladies, and they're walking in and they're like, "All right, we're doing this," you know, and they tell everyone what to do. And they'd been pepper sprayed, they'd been beaten, everyone had friends that had been shot with rubber bullets. One of them had 3 surgeries on their chest from a rubber bullet and still couldn't get fixed from that. Another one had been shot in the hip with a rubber bullet and they couldn't fix it. And they said, you know, we walked away. We weren't even engaging. We were walking away from the police, and they just opened fire on us with rubber bullets. And of course, the media doesn't show any of that.
No.
So when we went to this, we had our big rally, which, you know, the media said, oh, they had to acknowledge it. There was 10,000 people there. Well, I mean, of course, everyone's saying there was over 1 million because there was more than, you know, some crazy amount of cars that came into our city. But when we went on Google, there's something that I saw a picture of it. You can put a line around a crowd and it estimates how many were in the crowd. Now, we had trees and things that you couldn't estimate, but Google came up at 263,000 people. And that's a lot of people.
A lot of people.
The day after that, the police went into full just Nazi mode. Everybody camps in Australia. So there's the towns around our city, Canberra. There's Yass and Murrumbateman and Bungendore. And I have video there. I drove out to those towns in the following days. The police came out in what I call the brown shirts. They were hit squads. They came out in squads with vans. They ran everybody out of those private campgrounds, privately owned campgrounds. Well, came in and told the owners, if you don't get rid of these people, threatened them. People were camping remotely. They would find where they were remotely. I was taking food to some of the campgrounds. And there's a legal campground here that you buy a permit and you're on. So there was a bunch of people down there one night, and I was coming back the next night with food and water for them. And as I drove in with, I had a 70-something-year-old lady with me, just, you know, one of my mother's friends. And as we drove in, the whole place was locked down like military style. They had probably 40 police officers in this tiny campground. They just started at one end, walked through, said, you've got 15 minutes to get out of here. And I have video of where they just rolled up tents, threw them in the back of their police trucks, and those people never saw their belongings again. They were taken to the dump. If they found anybody camped on the side of the road or sleeping in their car, I saw a man with interstate number plate or tag for you Americans, and he probably had 8 police officers surrounding him, and they just ran him out of town. They drove him out. And normally the police in this state don't go to other states, even though they're federal police. They crossed across into other states and just hounded and hounded. I met women. There's a video of a woman on my site that was arrested by the police. I was there. They were towing her car while she's standing there. They pushed her in the back, an older lady. And he was like a police commissioner that did that. She hit her children on a bus. She's telling me how something like 10, 15 police officers stood banging the side of the bus, just terrorizing the children. She's screaming at them, just let my kids out, you know. And finally the police parted and let the kids come off the bus. I mean, her kids are like 7, 8-year-old children.
Wow.
Um, Even currently, they've just passed laws. Yesterday, it was in the mainstream media, and of course, they do the propaganda spin. They showed 4 protesters in Sydney that had blocked a road. I mean, who are these people? And they said because of these people, we've had to pass a new law that it's illegal to protest on a road because of the convoys.
Yeah.
And if you protest on a road, you are facing, what was it now, $22,000 fine.
Yeah.
And 2 years in jail.
Yeah, that's insane. So we are right now. We have a bill going through the House. It's called Bill S-100, and it's exactly like yours. I read through yours, and I read through our bill after you sent me a message this morning, and it says the exact same thing. If so, it's vague in the sense that if you disrupt area economically, basically.
That's it. Same thing. Identical bill. Identical bill.
Identical. We have the like. That's why I'm telling people, like, guys, it's happening. Write your MPPs. Like, I have an email list in my Telegram, so that you just literally write their own thing and copy the email list. Right. I mean, I think any action is good action, but it's absolutely.
And you know, what's the name of that website? Stand Up, no, Take a Stand Canada or something?
Canada.
Yeah, so I was talking to them, and we're talking to them again today, because I was saying to them, it's so obvious to me. I'm dealing with New Zealand and some of these, the police tactics and the laws they're passing, especially in these Commonwealth countries, they're identical.
They're identical. This is an attack. Identical. This is the global elites completely taking over. This is
correct.
Totalitarian, you know, and that's what this is. And they're all the same. Like, this is.
Yeah. Oh, you've cut out.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, you're back.
Do you guys have a censorship bill going through as well?
I believe so. I think it may have even passed this week. They had one that said they are allowed to go onto your Facebook, Instagram, any of your own online presence, and change it to the state narrative. So whatever they feel it should be, they have the right to now go on to our private online presence and alter anything they choose to alter.
So basically, your government is saying, if you have an opinion that differs from the narrative, they're going to go into your personal Facebook account and switch things so that it fits their narrative.
Their narrative. They've just passed that bill. We were protesting on Tuesday at the Parliament House for it. There's a guy on I videoed him and I put the video up. He had an RF meter. I mean, he's standing at Parliament House with his RF meter showing me that they're radiating us with stuff from either end. The sides weren't, the ends were. When I come home from there, every time we go up to Parliament House for a protest, for 2 to 3 days, your whole body is burning. And this guy's showing, he said the acceptable level of RF is 0.2 or something. His meter was showing signs like 12.2. I mean, they were cooking us. They were cooking their own police officers that were standing there. And it's just all silently done. In fact, I still feel burning, and it's from Tuesday. All down my arms, you just feel, you know, when you get that sunburnt feeling. And the first time I was there, I just thought I was sunburned. And I was on my face. But then you can't understand it. All your arms are you feel like you put them in a microwave oven. And the guy shows it. The meter's on there. He's holding the meter up, showing, saying, Scott, they are cooking us. We're being fried while we stand here. So at night time now, they're going, people if they have cars, if they have tents or anything, they get removed. So people are just taking their sleeping bags and they're going and sleeping on the grass at Parliament House. And the police are coming in under cover of darkness and And I was watching it last night in the feed. I know the man that was doing the feed, and he's saying on there that they now have the power, the police have the authority to just walk up to you and say, they get your identification, and they say you are banned from, 3 months, 6 months, the rest of your life from being allowed to come to Parliament House.
No way.
Yeah, they have just. I actually think Australia is ahead of the curve on the draconian
It is.
power.
I always said it's the guinea pig. They're the guinea pig.
Correct. It is, and I think that. And we were talking last night about the Stand Up Canada how that's going to come into Australia, and they're going to be doing that, and into New Zealand and things. And we said, I said, we move as one. If we don't start moving as one, we're done. Because they learn what works here, they do it there. But if they all talk. Yeah. So as our countries all start talking and saying, hey, this is what they're going to do, this is how they're doing it, we're ready for them.
100%. And that's why, when we were in the States, we got together with people there. We got connected to you. So beautiful.
Correct.
The university connecting us. We do have to connect, and we do have to unite, because you are going through this before us, and everything that is happening there is happening here. Or
they would never, if it wasn't for Canada, people here would have just, the Aussies that have that attitude, oh, she'll be right, mate. Now I've spent 20 years in, as you know, Portugal and USA, and Portuguese, you don't tend to push them around too easily either.
Oh, no.
And
you don't mess with
Portuguese, no, especially Portuguese women.
I know.
But the Australians are just, they'd never do that here. It's fine here. And they're asleep. And because I've got that US mentality, I'm coming in and saying, guys, and there's many others are, but Canada's really woken us up to a slew of laws and things that they were putting through that people were completely just switched off to, just completely trusting the authorities here. They still are. I mean, I've had high school friends tell me that they never want to have anything to do with me, defriend me, because I said that the government is not doing the right thing. I've got people I know that are saying, we're going to destroy you. We're going to find a way to destroy you. That men that I've known for 30, 40 years, that because you're speaking out, you're right wing, you're anti-vax.
Yeah.
I'm not anti-vax. I'm pro-freedom.
I know. That's what we all are. That's what we all are. We're pro freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of expression, freedom of travel. Oh my God! And I there's so many things I want to talk to you about. Like, pick your brain. And my kids are there. They're in Queensland, so Queensland hasn't been as badly affected.
That woman's a witch. I mean,
yeah. But they've not been locked down compared to other parts in Australia.
No, they have, but Queensland. So I was living up there for a time in Townsville, which is the top of the state. I mean, so they're like real rednecks, But down around Brisbane, they got locked down pretty hard. Anastasia Palaszczuk, that's her name, the equivalent of a governor. But she was pretty strict down in the highly populated areas. But as you get up north, the people were not so compliant. They're all, it's like the good old boys, and so But she's definitely destroyed the state. I mean, I've actually set up, because of this, I've set up another global inflation freedom, where I'm talking about some of that, because I think what the government's doing is, whoever's doing it, while they're keeping us all busy with all of this, they've destroyed our economy, and it's not coming back. And they want to bring in whatever they want to bring in. I don't know. I'm not in their room. But when they talk.
Sorry, Scott. Are they talking about bringing in a digital ID or a social kind of?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes, they are. So your country, again, here, the Liberals are trying to push forward a digital ID.
So to make that even scarier, I know personally a man here, a small businessman that I have a lot to do with. The guy, he's one of us. The guy that works next door to him, he has a young man in his 20s. He has a chip implanted in his right hand. and he's proud of it. The guy thinks it's wonderful. All of his finances, when he goes to a shop and does the pay wave, he just puts his hand over the top of the machine and it scans it for him. All of his medical history, his whole life is implanted in a chip inside his hand.
So okay, I've got some questions about that. This guy's Australian. He's
Australian.
He got it in Australia.
He got that in Australia.
And so what is it basically, like total digital ID? Like it's got all his information.
Complete. Every part of his life is on a chip that's implanted in his hand.
Okay. Did you see him use it? Like,
I can go and get pictures tomorrow.
No way. Send me those. Please send me those.
Yeah. And I don't know what their plans are, but I know that all I can see is I do think Australia is, because our population is so limited, it's a great place for them to try out all of their nefarious and evil motives and plans.
You're an island.
Yep.
You're an island.
And generally the Aussies are very laid back, just, they wouldn't do that. Well, yeah, that's biblical. I mean, the Bible talks about not being able to sell without a mark of the beast, in your forehead and your right hand. And here's a man with a chip planted in his right hand with his whole complete digital ID on it, which enables him to buy and sell. And people are just, who cares?
That's insane. So when, like, have they kind of set a date or talked about a time to implement this digital ID, not the chip, but just a digital ID? Like, you guys, one thing you guys had that we never had here that was crazy. Bar, everywhere I went, even in an elevator, in a gas station, in a grocery store, in the mall hallway, you had to check in every single place you went.
Correct. They had. Sorry, I'm just plugging in my charger to make sure I don't die on us.
Yeah.
They had it in parks outside. If you wanted to go to a park, they wanted you to scan in just to let your children play on the play equipment in a park.
Oh God, I hope you guys are listening up. I really hope.
They had it on gates to walk on bush tracks. I went for a walk with a friend up a mountain here, or hill, mountain, not like Canadian mountains, but
right.
to where you park your car to walk out of the parking lot, it's bush. They had a scanner that you had to scan in. I didn't. Well, I won't say what I did, but they had a scanner there that you used a barcode reader thing. I know a man. They said, "Oh, we're not tracking you," but I know a man here personally that he lived in another part of the state and he wanted to travel, and he scanned in at a supermarket. And when he tried to get a permit to move to go to another area, it wouldn't give him the permit, and it came up and said, "You've been to this supermarket in this area," and he couldn't move. He couldn't travel.
Because they had an outbreak, right? It's contact tracing. So there was an outbreak at the supermarket, therefore he wasn't allowed to cross.
No, he was just in an area that had break, but not in that supermarket. It was just in that general area there'd been.
Wow.
It was classified a hotspot. And so we don't want anyone from anywhere near a hotspot to come into our other parts of our state. So they were tracking. They are using those scanners to track people's movement and to limit where you go. Now, you could go there, but no, I went across the border 3 times into Queensland.
Interrupt here really quickly, because it says, what if you don't scan? I never scanned. I would pretend to scan when I was there.
Correct.
So I pretend, and then I didn't have any issues.
Correct. And a lot of people did that.
Yeah.
But some places, some of the more corporate entities, we have a big hardware store here called Bunnings. They were like military. And when you went in there, they would have a security guard there that would check on your phone if you'd scanned in. I just didn't go in there.
Yeah.
They had, so a lot of the more corporate type companies, the larger companies, were aggressively enforcing for the authorities the COVID mandates. And it was like, well, hang on a minute, why? You want to chase people out of your shop? If the authorities want that, let them do it. But they weaponized the corporations, because the corporations, as we all know, living in America, they run the show. And so the corporations feed the government, and the government feeds the corporations. And so the corporations are a creation of the state, that they're then able to go to these ones like Google, like Facebook, and say, you'll do as we say, because we're scratching your back and you scratch ours. And so basically all these corporations become entities of enforcement entities of the state.
Well, that's what's happening. So I want to talk about that, because I would say probably about a year ago, was there not some sort of conflict between Facebook and your country, where there was, I can't remember exactly what it was, but like something to do with the ads or making money. So they said, oh, I don't know, it was something in the, and Facebook.
I think it was, yeah, I remember there was, and I'm trying to remember too, but wasn't it something to do with tracking for their advertisement or something? Yeah, your personal habits or something.
It was something like that, but then I thought that Australia did fight it, saying, because it was almost like Facebook was taking government power over the government. Like the government had something. It was like Facebook was like, no, we'll just shut Australia. I think they threatened to Australia down.
They were.
The rest of the world.
Yeah, they were. So much has happened. I'm sorry, I can't remember the details of it, but I do remember something like that happened. Yeah, it's just been. We are watching, and you know, I say to people, you don't appreciate your freedom until it's gone, and when it's gone, it's too late. and so, your video that I put up I put a snippet up on my Facebook from an excerpt, and I was thrilled because of a respectable, you know, lovely looking lady, just, you know, I'm giving you a compliment too, but you know, like a nice lady that's respectable. You're not some, you know, what they'd see as a tree hugger that's just, you know, strapping yourself to bulldozers and screaming. And you're a normal middle upper class lady that, to me, it was very important that went to my Facebook group, because they're looking and saying, hey, hang on a minute, this person actually looks like a nice person.
Yeah.
And she's saying that, and you can hear the passion in your voice about your children. And at one point you choke up, which, you know, I do regularly with thinking of this. And all we can do is just keep doing what we're doing, and hope that people catch a hold of the fact that this is happening.
I'm going to grab something for you really quick here. I want to show you this. I think a lot of people don't understand how difficult this has been. Well, a lot of my followers have supported me so much, but how difficult it's been as a mom to know what's going on in Australia, and my kids are there, and you know, when I talk to them, I try to not talk too much about this, like always act like I'm happy and everything's good. Yeah. You're going to be coming home soon. And it's so hard, and that's why I'm so grateful to talk to you, because I don't know anybody in Australia. Like, I have a following, but who's really really, really in it and can talk about
There's a lady I met in one of the rallies here and one of the camps. I keep seeing the same people. So you meet them, and excuse me, she's from Western Australia. Their border is still completely sealed, and she's got a partner and 2 daughters, and she's not seen them in 2 or 3 months. She can't get back over the border. If she goes back over the border, they will arrest her, and she will be put in prison. And she said, we know people that have tried to sneak over the border, they get caught somehow. And she said, these people are sitting in jails in Western Australia.
So they'll put you in prison if you cross the border.
If you cross the border.
In your own country.
In your own country. In your own country.
Oh my God.
And she said, I said, won't you, you know, do people sneak over? And she said, yeah, they do. They sneak over. She said, we know people that have snuck over and they get caught. She said, many times they get caught because, you know, there's an online presence or somebody that knows them thinks they're doing the right thing, or we're saving Australia from a COVID outbreak. And I know that this person was just in New South Wales, so they turn them in. And so like the Nazis did, they have people turning people in, thinking that they're saving their community from COVID. And she said, if we fly in internationally, you can fly in internationally into Western Australia without being vaccinated, but you can't cross the interstate, the border back into Western Australia, even if you're a resident of Western Australia.
So are vaccinated allowed they're vaccinated are allowed to cross borders?
Well, vaccinated can cross the internal border, correct. So I flew to Queensland the other week and back, and the lady in front of me was American. So I got talking with her because I'm American too. And I said, how'd you get into she'd just flown in. I said, how'd you get into the country, you know, with your vaccination stuff? And she said, they didn't even ask me. I said, you're kidding me. They're putting out to everybody that you have to be vaccinated to cross the borders and get into Australia. She said, I was shocked. She said, I had everything done. I think she was vaccinated. She said, I had everything ready to show, and nobody even asked me to show it.
Wow. When I was in the facility, do you know that I had to do it? It didn't even matter if you were fully vaccinated or not. You still had to do the facility at that time.
Right. Correct. Still, I think still.
Oh, really?
Doesn't matter if you're vaccinated. Really, if you're vaccinated, you have no real additional benefits here.
But didn't they change that? So if it's okay, if I fly over right now, I thought they're not letting unvaccinated international people in.
Well, that's like with this lady. She said they didn't even ask her. So it's hard to know. They say one thing, but when you get there, it's different.
Yeah.
It's so hard, and whoever decides to change a law or make a law up on the spur of the moment at that thing, and they treat it like it's the gospel law.
Yeah.
So it's hard. It's so hard to actually know. I travelled to Queensland. I got told by people, you can't go. I called up, spoke to the department in charge. They're like, yeah, no, you can go. And you've got to be very legal. So when I tried to come back, I'd been into Townsville is the town, but Greater Townsville. But they'd said anyone that's been in Townsville is not allowed to, or Townsville City is not allowed to come back from Queensland. So I called up, and one person said, no, you're not allowed to travel. And I said, well, wait a minute. I haven't been to Townsville City. I've been to Townsville, but not Townsville City, which is what they'd actually written.
Yeah.
And I was able to get through on that loophole to be able to travel back.
Wow.
So you kind of have to be very legal in your readings of what they write, because, and then that loophole closes pretty quick. But they will. So I'm just something your viewers and our viewers may want to bear that in mind when you read something. Don't read into it. Read what it says and to the letter of what it says. And if it says, you know, you can't be in, you know, Ottawa City, but you're in Ottawa, you're okay.
Right.
But you have to be able to stand your ground and say that, which I had to the authority. I've not been to Townsville City. Yeah. I've been to Townsville, but not Townsville City. And your thing says specifically Townsville City.
Right.
And I was able to get through.
There was only a very short of time where our Quebec, Ontario border was patrolled, and they were asking people and people around. It was very short-lived. We definitely not experienced what you guys are going through over there in terms of them shutting down your interstate borders. So who's patrolling them? Military, police? Is it both?
Well, as far as I'm aware right now, the only border that's closed still is Western Australia. Okay. As far as I'm aware, the Northern Territory maybe, but I think it's just Western Australia currently. No, they would have. I mean, I went out back out through Lightning Ridge, which is out into Queensland, which is like out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, you're like, I'm the only car on a road for 200 kilometres at night. You know, I drove through the night, and I get to the border, and there's a little policeman standing there wanting to check everything. And of course, you're the only car he's seen for hours. So, you know, he's like,
oh God.
But I'm sure there's people that found backtracks through and things like that, but it's not so easy because unless you really know the area, people couldn't do that. So as far as I'm aware, they did deploy military in Australia. I think in Sydney at one point they had the military on the streets enforcing lockdowns.
Yeah.
Which
were they going door to door to make sure people were staying home?
Yeah, they were. I mean, I don't know what their specific actions were, but I know that they were going through the residential areas and enforcing people staying home. Yes.
Yeah.
They are.
For just walking on the streets, correct? Like there was a point where.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. You walk on the street, you're in jail.
So you, if you were not isolating during the lockdown and you were walking on the street, they would fine you and arrest you.
Absolutely, 100%. There was people, and that's what people didn't realise about Victoria. In Queensland, there was people that probably didn't leave their home in 200 and something days. They were not. It's not that they were just. The city was just locked down. These people were locked in their homes. If they lived in an apartment, they were locked in their apartment. They were allowed out. You were allowed out for, I forget what it was now, 30 minutes or something a day to exercise. And then they put all sorts of restrictions on that. But or you were allowed to go to the shop, directly to a shop to buy groceries or to buy food. But then they regulated that. People were, and of course, if you were out and then they caught you and then you came out again and they found that you were out again, people were getting massive fines, and no voice. And so what they're doing in darkness here, people don't, like the rest of Australia, if they knew what was going on in Victoria, they'd have been ropeable. But what do? They all just sit on their hands. And I've been a voice to try to say to people here, being the resistance doesn't mean you wake up and do some major big thing. Being part of the resistance means do the little things, but for God's sake, do something.
Do something.
Put a sticker somewhere. Tell your next door neighbor, just open your mouth, do something, for God's sake.
Yeah. So it's saying my person, she never went through any of that. What you have to understand, it wasn't all of Australia that had these really draconian measures. It was only parts. So New South Wales and Victoria, right, were the ones.
Victoria was the worst. The Premier Dan Andrews, and that man is a self-professed socialist. He aligns with the Communist Party. He doesn't hide that. So he's done backdoor deals with China and things like that. He loved the power. He feeds on the power.
Yeah.
And walk around like they're Chavez.
I imagine the poor people of Victoria went through, like, I think it was 246 days, houses.
Oh, it's crazy. I met a woman from Victoria.
I just have to say this. So 99.9% survival rate. And at the time that I was there, so Melbourne had been released, or Victoria had been released when I had left, which was September 11th. They've done this to Australians, guys. Get this, for all of Australia. At that time, there were 900 deaths. 900.
Well, that gets even worse now. The Australian Bureau of Statistics, which is a government department, and I've seen the form, the sheet, released the statistics on COVID-related deaths, and they went through it all, and people that actually died of COVID, it was like down like 20 or something like that, some obscenely low number. I'll see if I can find that document for you. But what they're saying is a lot of people died with COVID in their system. So if you got hit with it, I know people that are in the medical system here. If you got hit by a bus, God willing you won't, somebody gets hit by a bus and they go into the emergency department and their head's hanging off their shoulders and they've still got one breath left in their body, and they take that breath, as they die, they actually have COVID in their system, they're a COVID death.
I'm going to show you our document. Our document on Ontario.ca actually says, so they've admitted this, Scott, here in Canada, in Ontario. So as of March 11th, 2022, it states in the Ontario.ca website on the PDF, Living and Managing with COVID-19, that they're now going to make changes to how they will report COVID deaths, because they're going to remove deaths from the reporting system that died with COVID, not of COVID. So
of COVID, correct.
Exact same thing. And then they go on to say this will decrease the number of deaths. Can you believe that? Like, that's a slap in the face. But I'm like, so the exact same thing. They actually, same thing. You could have trauma, car accident, jumped off a building, and they were testing. I just did an interview today. You got to watch it, with a funeral director. They were swabbing people when they were dead. So they'd come in with car.
Yeah, I watched a bit of that, and you know, I lived in Boston, so one of my friends in Boston, his parents just died about 2 or 3 months ago, probably 3 months now, and both of them were in their 80s. Both of them died after getting the vax, and the hospital came to him and said, "Can we write cause of death COVID on the birth certificate because we get federal funding for that?" And he wouldn't let them. He said, "Absolutely not. They didn't die of COVID, but they did die after they got the vax, both of them." And they're saying here, they're not publicising it, but we're having sportsmen dropping like flies. Shane Warne is one of our famous cricketers that was a face for the vaccines. Get out and get vaccinated. He mocked Novacek for not getting vaccinated. He went to Thailand and died of a heart attack, a perfectly healthy man, and they all know it's from the vax, but they won't say that. And there's like endless, this last week, every couple of days, someone was sending a message about another sports person that's just died or been taken to hospital with a heart condition. And of course the media's, you know, they'll find anything rather than say that it's from the vaccines.
No, they won't talk about it whatsoever.
Nothing
more than people are made aware of. They have it, you know, hidden and intertwined secretly in things, because do you know that AstraZeneca was pulled in my country for blood clots? And when I was in Australia, that was the vax they were promoting there consistently.
Yep.
Yeah. But it was pulled from my country in a bunch of other countries. So anyways, but they have this, like, so if you go on to sickkids.ca website, which is our Sick Kids Hospital in our area for Toronto, it'll say myocarditis and pericarditis, and there's a big page on their website that discusses, you know, this heart condition post-vax. And Pfizer just released their adverse. Did you see the Pfizer documents?
I did, yeah.
It's neurological condition.
But again, the mainstream media, nobody does anything about it. Oh, I'm like, it's so hard to not think there is an agenda behind the scenes. I don't know. You know, people have asked. I was a minister, so you know, people are ask and say, "Oh, it's a conspiracy," and I took the line of, I think it's just a demonic conspiracy. I think when people get power, they get drunk on power. I don't think that anybody's that smart that they've orchestrated all of this, but I think they're catching on quick, and they are orchestrating, and they are doing. But I think they just found, they're opportunists. They just found that opportunity came. That's what I was saying. The global inflation freedom site, I put that up because of this sort of thing. But while all this is going on, people, I really want to be that voice to say to people, you need to prepare spiritually, really, in your heart, in peace for what's coming, because hyperinflation, and you were saying, Monique, that you have friends in Venezuela. I interviewed a man in Venezuela about hyperinflation for that site. And I'm just trying to say to people, hyperinflation is a reality. Hyperinflation is on its way. And like the Venezuelan said, you know, in Brazil, I interviewed them and I was saying the same thing. They said, look, we have, you know, our authorities were telling us inflation was at 7% when it was at 100%. And then and now I think the Venezuelan guy said it went to something like 1 billion% or something crazy like that.
A house that was million is worth like 50,000. So the people that didn't get out now don't want to leave because they have absolutely nothing. Everything's gone. And I don't know about you, but our gas prices are the highest I've ever seen. Like, it's insane.
Correct. Correct.
When I was in Australia, I couldn't believe how expensive food was there. I was like, wow. But our food,
even worse now.
The cost of living's going up. You guys are obviously having shortage issues with. I mean, the whole world has been affected by import exports. With this.
But that's a bait and switch. I don't believe all of that. I think that what they're doing is they're purposely choking our economies to bring about this and to get people so concerned about and in fear that they become dependent on the state. And Venezuela,
100%.
he was telling me that they had something like, pardon me, I forget all the exact numbers, but he said something like we had, to give an idea, 1 million government workers. He said as inflation hit, we ended up, or hyperinflation, we have 6 million government workers. They went from 6,000 a month pay packet to the equivalent of $6 a month pay packet. And then he said the government gives them gift bags twice a month with, you know, the whatever in it, toothpaste and toilet paper, I guess. I don't know, whatever's in it. But what I was sort of getting at with them is the only answer the government has to economic woes is socialism and socialism programs. And so they print more cash and they start to form socialist enterprises. And Australia has a thing called Centrelink, which is our welfare program. And I've been saying this for a while now, and it's actually starting to happen. They're going to take over people's mortgages that can't pay their mortgages. When our economies default, I believe our welfare systems are going to say, we'll pay. You're on our benefits, though. So now you're part of the socialist system. We'll feed you. They're already doing this here. We'll feed you on there. We'll medicate you. If you want your hospital treatment, it's all through Centrelink. If you don't get vaccinated, Centrelink cuts your benefits. So they are completely nationalising, socialising our society under the guise of we're helping, but it's all. So I think in this city I'm in, a massive percentage of the homes are actually owned by Centrelink now. A lot of them are empty. But what they'll do is they'll when people start defaulting on their payments, which they will, Centrelink's going to step in and say, well, we'll float it with the banks, but you're going to have to work in what we tell you. And if you could be a doctor, and if they want you sweeping streets, you'll sweep streets. Because if you don't do it, they'll say, well, then we're not going to pay your mortgage. Your family's going to be out on the street. We're not going to feed you. We're not going to give you money for fuel. We're not going to. They completely will own every layer of people's life. They're already doing it. They've been doing it here for years. And all they're doing is ramping it up more and more and more and more. And when this economy collapses, we are going to have a socialist government.
Yeah.
Well, but it's not really socialist because it's not going to profess to be socialist, but everything that's running it and everything that's driving it is socialist.
So it's already happening here too. They've already done a pilot of universal basic income. So same type of idea. They'll pay a certain amount of money every month, but then they have, someone actually mentioned on here, universal basic income, because they're going to just choke us and we're going to need them, right? Our interest rates are going to go up shortly. Our house prices skyrocketed in a time where the economy was at its
inflation, and that's inflation.
And exactly at the time it's at its worst. Because I'm a realtor actually. That's what I do in real life. But so I've seen it and I've been doing this, and I'm like, how is it possible that these houses keep, you know, going up, 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 up?
But you know, on that housing one here in the city that I'm in Canberra, people are saying, "Oh, I'm a millionaire," because there's not a house that's not worth $1 million now. Oh, I'm a millionaire. My house is worth $1 million, and I keep saying to them, "You don't understand. If everybody's a millionaire, nobody's a millionaire."
Yeah. Yeah.
I said, it's not. It's just numbers in your head.
Yeah.
But what inflation is it's a tax that robs you while you sleep, and it protects the politicians, because the politicians, if they raise interest, like if they tax you, they lose in the polls. Nobody will vote for them. So instead of increasing a tax, they hide inflation in this stuff. Inflation is a tax, but it's a tax that the government doesn't have to claim responsibility for. Oh, it's COVID. Oh, that's,
Yeah.
you know, we all had to print money for the COVID response. So now in the polls, they look like heroes because, oh, these guys saved us. You didn't save us. You taxed the wazoo out of us.
Yeah.
With inflation.
You know what they did to us in Ottawa? So the most peaceful, loving. I was there the entire time. I was one who got pepper spray right there, right at the front, the whole time I was there. It was the most peaceful, loving. I don't know if anybody here was in Ottawa. If you were there, just raise your hand or comment.
That's like our epic. Our epic was like that.
Yeah. So, and yeah, you guys have always been very peaceful as well. I've watched you guys so closely, as you know. This is like, I'm a mom, just like, oh my God, what's going on? What's going on? I'm trying to watch everything, right? Because I'm having my own anxieties of what's going on over there. But they spent $36.6 million for the police presence protection in Ottawa, which was completely irrelevant. So yeah, they're going to talk about the field hospitals that they had to pay for, which would be up millions and millions of dollars. I call it propaganda. That's the police, 36. Like, it's just useless money.
Did you know that they had here people that would go out in a park without a mask? They had a helicopter and squads of police raid the parks because they'd see some guy without a mask. But then when they had actual real crime here, you can't find the police. And so in the city that I'm in, at night time, the whole south of this city, I forget, I said one and I think somebody corrected me. There's now two. There's something like 2 police cars that patrol the whole south end of this city at night. They don't have the money to put any more. And then, so the north's probably, there could be at any time tops of 10 police officers overnight that are patrolling this whole city. When these things went down, they had police officers and police officers and police officers. And we are convinced that these were not real police officers. Whatever they came from, this city, and I've grown up here, I spent years here, it doesn't have that many police officers.
Yeah, same with
so somewhere they were shipping people in, sticking a uniform on them.
Yeah.
I talked to some men one day. I was walking up with some kids from Melbourne, actually. Bumped into a lady and some kids, and I'm walking up to the start of the protest. And the kids were telling me, they're like 7-year-old kids, telling me how terrible the police are. So I walked up to 3 police officers there and said, hey, I was a bit cheeky, maybe, but fresh. I said, these kids say that you're all pricks. But I said, but you're not. So I said, how about, could you just come and say hi to these children and let them see that you're not all pricks? And they looked at me and said, that's your opinion. I said, it's not about opinion. I said, could you just come and meet the kids? They refused to do it. I don't believe they were police.
No.
They weren't police. They were 3 big young guys that were built like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Right.
They were military or something.
Yeah.
That it just had a uniform on.
A lot of people say, and I can't confirm this, but
I can't confirm what I said either. But
yeah. No, but when we were there, we were in front of them. These guys. So apparently some of them weren't really speaking English. So a lot of people think that they were UN soldiers. They're brought in.
That could have been true here too.
Wrote that right there. Yeah. So another thing.
They have turned the full force of our enforcement and agencies against the citizens in their own countries. They're doing that. I mean, drones are constant. I mean, they're identifying. If somebody was like, said to me, "Oh, Scott, someone was trying to scare me, because I'm your for freedom. They're going to have your face on the Secret Service wall." I said, "Well, I hope they do. They should. If they're doing their job, my face should be on there. Doesn't mean I've done anything wrong. But, I don't have to, you don't have to have done something wrong nowadays. If they want you gone, you're gone.
Yeah.
And you disappear in the night. So, I mean, if I've done something, they want to get rid of me. They don't need me to do something. I'm gone. I just disappear, and you'll never hear from Scott again. Where did he go? Well, I'm in heaven.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, I went to a conference last night with Dr. Julie Panassi. She's an ethics professor that's fired for speaking out, and the amazing and incredible Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And something in there that was so true. If you're not willing to die on this hill, there's not going to be any hill left for anybody to die.
I put up, did you see that in Boston, in the Holocaust Memorial, there's a poem, and I'm not going to do it justice, but it said something like, "They came for the Catholics and I said nothing because I'm not Catholic. They came for the trade unionists and I never said anything because I'm not a trade unionist. They came for I forget what the other one was, and I didn't say anything because I'm not that. Then they said they came for me and there was no one left to say anything."
And that's, we are the ones, and he said right now it's 33% of the world population. That's fake. We are the ones that are carrying this torch, and it's heavy at times, a lot of responsibility, let's say, but we have to be there to fight for those people. The ones that are asleep are the ones we're actually really for.
So another one, which I've not been able to confirm yet, but one of the convoy leaders here was telling me, he showed me some of the legislation. I haven't had the chance to really go through it. But the ACT government here, this state, which they are trying to get rid of the protesters because these people are not leaving. They don't have homes to go to. They've lost their homes, their businesses. They're just living in cars, protesting, driving around during the day to all the government departments with bullhorns and, and saying, "You're destroyed us," and things like this, right? Well, they want them gone. They said last week the ACT government was introducing a law, I don't know if it passed, to say that if you cannot enter this state unless you are vaccinated, and if you are not vaccinated and you're inside this state, they can forcibly vaccinate you. And I was like, the guy was freaking on that. He said, "They're trying to get rid of us." I said, "Well, you got to show me documents on that, because I can't just, it's probably true.
I believe it.
But usually what they'll do is they'll pass some legislation that's so broad that they can do that inside of it, and you don't know that's what the real purpose is."
Yes, this is an attack on all Commonwealth countries, 100%. The liberals did say, there was one of the panelists in a liberal or in a meeting the other day had stated that a digital ID system would work well to hunt down, track the unvaxxed to get them vaxxed or their second dose.
So they're already talking about
it.
Hunting down, but in Australia, which, like we say, as far as the draconian measures, we're ahead of the curve. They're already talking about, and it may have actually already passed, a law that says if you are not vaccinated and you enter this state, we can forcibly arrest you and vaccinate you. Hey, this thing's telling me I've only got 26 seconds left.
Oh dear. Okay. Let's go off and come back on. Don't forget to save it. So when you click on the X, it'll share, and you're going to share it.
Okay, I'll do that.
There's so much info here.